Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the From Her View podcast with myself, Sade Camille. Long time no see. You can't see me, but you get to hear me, right? It's a new episode, right? It's a surprise. So, obviously, I've been on a hiatus, something I didn't anticipate to happen, but kind of did. And God and His infinite wisdom, the timing, it was just chef's kiss. It was just so perfect, and it kind of, not kind of, it allowed me to focus, to reset, to hear from him, for me to acknowledge and start accomplishing the things that he's asked me to do. Um, and very necessary. So I'm not completed with my tasks, and it wasn't like I wasn't recording. I just opened the app back up and I saw I had all these recordings and everything like that. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't post any of these just because I wasn't permitted to post any of those things. There are episodes that I planned and I had structured and ready to record. I'm just not released to do that. And it's okay. I know that he doesn't have me getting it ready for no reason, right? He has me getting it ready for a reason. It is going to be released. It is going to be something that is needed in the future, but it's something that it's not needed for me to disclose just yet. So I just wanted to check in, you know, what do I got to talk about? I mean, you know me, the podcast is all about the renewing of our mind and our mindset and being done with Christ. So we are new creatures, meaning our mind is renewed. And with the current state, and I say the current state, but it's not just the current state. I feel like it's a always evolving, it's always something, right? Something is always coming about, but the main focal point is when your mind is renewed, you are a new creature. So there's certain viewpoints and aspects and ideologies that you were dead set on. And then you have this encounter with Christ, you're radically changed, and you are able to see, like, the scales fall off from your eyes and you're able to see things clearly and understand the things that are at play and understand that, everything that's going on. And for myself, I really haven't commented on any of some of the things that are going on, not because of any fear or anything like that, because quiet is kept. I'm really not too scared of people. Um, I was actually having this conversation with a coworker, and I'm like, I am one of those people that, like, I look very unassuming, short in stature, cutie patootie, but really, I I tell them, like, I got 6'5" black man energy, who likes to work out. So I'm not phased by anybody, essentially. Um, but obviously, how to pick your battles, but it's one of those things, like, if it's between me and somebody else, at, please believe I'm going to give you a run for your money. Like, it's not going to be, oh, like, no, it's not going to be any of that. But I digress. It's not the fear of man's opinion, um, because there's a certain level of things with that, right? I would have to value you, not to say that I devalue people. So let me get that clear. But I would have to value your opinion as a person for me to be in fear of what you think, how I think, or what I know, or how I feel. And it is very few people that I would even like care, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously you always want your children to see you not in a perfect light, but to see you in a good light, for them to, like, even if you had to do something where you did have to reprimand them, you want them to know that, like, it came from a good place, and please understand my viewpoint, and please understand where I'm coming from, and things of that nature. um but it's very few people, child. But what I will say is I haven't commented it on anything because that, and I just think that prayer is the better answer. And when a person is deep in a mindset, when a person is deep in their beliefs and everything like that, it's not hard, because there's nothing too hard for God, but it can be a distraction if that's not what you were called to do. And if you were called to do it, you would have a deep passion for it. So for myself, like, it would be one of those things where I would have to research and watch a couple videos and this that. That means that I'm taking time away from something that I need to be doing. He already gave me my directives, right? I would have to take time away from that to then focus on something like this. So, like, for me personally, I haven't seen any video. I've seen like little sound bites of him here and there. Haven't seen the video in question, or anything like that. And I pray that I never see it. I pray that I'm not like on social media or something like that, scrolling and then like the video pops up. So I pray that I never see that. Um, I think from this situation, the only thing that saddens me is that the way that people feel about it. Like, what saddens me is the lack of humility and emotional intelligence to know that you might not have liked this person. Like, I'm going to say something like really crazy, and like, God brought this to my mind when I was thinking about the situation, because he has been challenging my thinking he's been challenging my thinking on things that, I have encountered, right? I've encountered some situations where I got information about a person, um, Googleable, verifiable information about a person. And I was kind of surprised by it, but then I was like so angry. And I was angry because I was thinking about the victims. And I was thinking about the victims, but then God kind of like challenged me and was like, essentially, they're all victims, right? Hear me out. It sounds, kind of like whew, over your head or whatever. But from a sociology standpoint, because I do like that. I do like the study of people or whatever. Statistically speaking, perpetrators of some sort of violence, or like negative behaviors, we could, attest to them. They are learned behaviors. So these are either behaviors that they observed, or behaviors that they had imposed upon them, or, what I'm saying, there's so many different factors. But statistically speaking, if you were in this environment, you will be a product of your environment. It's actually a 50-50 coin toss, essentially. But you could either persevere because of your environment, or you can be a byproduct of your environment, meaning that you keep that thing alive, right? And so I found out this information and I was super upset about it. And then God kind of challenged me and was like, both are victims. Because you have to understand, like, even when you read the word, you have to understand that, like, God is sovereign. He is a good father, right? And you have to think about it from the stance of, like, you being a parent, or even from the stance of you of observing someone like that. So, like, even if you, like, observe someone, it could be people in the media, it could be people at your church, it could be people at your job, or anything like that. But you just, because, not all of us have had the same upbringing, so not all of us, you know, are at the same starting point. And it takes time for us to develop the understanding of what it means to have a good father, a good mother, right? But God is sovereign and He's a good father. And so you have to think about it this way. How it is supposed to be, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but how it is supposed to be is parents are supposed to be unbiased, right? So I have two children, and currently, and I have to be unbiased. What does that mean? When something happens, I have to tell the truth, call a spade, and keep it a buck, no matter how they feel. And ultimately, I don't necessarily owe them a reason for it, right? I don't owe them a reason, but I do give them insight in my head. So let me give you a point in the Bible where, like, God was like, I don't owe you no reason, child. Do what I say, And it would be in Job. So it's a passage in Job where God is like, do you know how many, I'm paraphrasing, but do you know how many teeth Leviathan got? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how he was created and fabricated and everything like that? And he was like, don't come for me. To Job, basically, like, stay in your lane. Job was like, hey, yo, I don't know, so, like, let me sit down somewhere. But there are also points in the Bible where I don't want to say that God has to explain himself. He never has to explain himself, but he will reveal his intentions all along, right? Case in point, which something that I'm currently reading, or not currently reading, I just got finished reading that, but Joseph. So, uh, reading about Joseph's story and how he had the dream with imagery tying to what God wanted him to do. So he actually had a dream with imagery, okay, tying to the purpose that God had on him. So God had already gave him, the visionary or whatever. And so if you know the story, you know how everything plays out, you know how he's done, how he's looked over a lot of the time, but he still has the favor of God on him. And there comes a point in time, when he says to his brothers, like, you meant it for my bad, but God meant it for my good. So that's something that you can only fathom if you know the story of Joseph, that you could sit back and look back at your life and be like, oh, I had to go through these things to fulfill the dream, the vision that you gave me. All the other things in this story had to happen in order for me to save many lives. And he got that revelation through God revealing it to him. So there are points in time where God will explain himself or make known or give revelation to, why is this going on? Like, what's happening? Like, what's the aha? Like, what's the big picture, right? And sometimes it could be in a vastness like that, or sometimes it could be kind of, I don't want to say microscopic, but isolated, right? Um, for myself, I sit back and think about the fact that currently at the recording of this podcast, right? I'm 37. People see me, they don't think I'm 37. They think I'm like mid 20s. Cool, whatever. I'll take it. But then they want to be acting crazy because they think I'm in my 20s. And it's like, no, I am grown. But I'm 37 and I think about my life, like Facebook memories and stuff like that. And I'm like, dang, like I have lived a life. Like I feel like the life that I lived was like 60 years. Like I've done too many things, you know what I'm saying? God has me on a journey where I'm just flabbergasted by the things that I've accomplished, by the things that I've been exposed to, by the things that I've been delivered from in this amount of time. Now, mind you, a good what? I'd say 10 of them out of the 37 years. So we'll just say, for the sake of argument, 27 years. Even though from conception till now, everything has been a training ground for something prolific that he wants me to do. And I sit back and I think about that, and it just makes me just be in full honor and just, oh God, you're just so good. Even with the podcast, like quiet is kept. When I was a kid, it seems like I'm going on a tangent, but I promise you, I'm gonna round it out. I'm gonna round it out, bring it home, and we're going to be good. But when I was a kid, I would say probably in the age range of like 10 to 12, 12, 13, whatever. I was obsessed with music. Not like obsessed, but I was really into music. I had an aunt at the time who I would say was my grandma, but she was really into music, but like music of her time. So like Earth, Wind and Fire, Michael Jackson, Prince, like that type of music. And so I was really into music, and she had like a sweet sound system and everything like that. And I remember getting um, a boombox from a garage sale and realizing that I could record over tapes with this boombox. And so I would do little radio shows. It started out like me trying to record my favorite song on the radio so I can make my mixtape. That's what we had to do before it was YouTube playlists and Spotify and everything like that. Like, that's how we had to get it done. And I would do that. And then soon I'd be like, oh, hey, this is the radio show, Sade. Yeah, let's do this and do that. And then one year, my mom got me a karaoke machine with a mic. And I was like, I'm named after a singer. I don't claim to be a singer. Can I carry a tune if I have to? But I can't say that that's not my calling, because he be trying to bring me there. But it's not something that I fully leaned into, But ooh, and yeah, I would like pretend like I was hosting a show and everything like that. And so coming full circle, having a podcast, that's nothing new to me, That's always a skill that I had. That's something that he showed me, right? Because I'm mapping this thing out. Mind you, where did I see that at? Nowhere. That's something that he gave me then as a child. Even being an educator. So I used to teach. And when I was a kid, I used to play school with my siblings. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I packed your lunch. Da, da, da. What are we going to learn? And I remember playing school with him. Not very often, but like remember doing it enough, maybe once or twice or whatever. But playing that with it. And it's just like, oh, okay, like I was acting out those things early on. And that is like your training ground. That is like David as a shepherd boy. That was his training ground where God was preparing him for what his true calling was to be. And sometimes our training ground is unconventional. So, to round it out, yeah, sometimes God will explain himself, sometimes he won't. But he is still a good father. And so we are his children. And ultimately, he was like, they're all victims. They all have like a place in my heart, because to God, sin is sin. There is no, this is division one sin, this is division three sin. Like, no, there's no such thing as that with him, you know? It's all sin. It's all missing the mark. It's all, but Jesus died on the cross to pay it off so we will not be not connected to him. Yet we do have free will and we have the choice to not choose it. That's how much he loves us. Think about it as a parent. I love you enough to be like, hey, you know how they would tell you, my house, my rules, and if you don't want to follow my rules, like you can get out and da da da. But he loves you enough to say, like, this is my house. These are my rules. You can abide by them, or I can let you be free. It's the prodigal son, like, basically. And so, even though I was like, oh my God, da da da, he brought that up to me. And then he also brought up, oh my God, I always butcher this. Hmm. Saul. He brought up Saul, not Paul, and how he was a persecutor of Christians, but yet he was an integral part in the spreading of the gospel. He was redeemed. So it's a lot of these times where if a person has true repentance, if they come into right relationship with Christ, they do have redemption, right? And even though it's not for me to say if God had not been knocking at the door and that person did not answer, or you know what I'm saying? Like that's not for me to say, There were kind of signs, but like that's not for me to say because our relationship with Christ is very personal and we are not gonna come to Christ squeaky clean. If we come to Christ squeaky clean, then why do we need him? Why do we need a savior if we got it all together? Right? We don't got it all together and we need a savior. We need somebody to help us. We need somebody to hold our hand, right? So if I'm saying, okay, cool, he he did this thing, um, socially we feel like it's heinous, we feel like it's immoral, I still have to as a Christian, as someone that's, you know, seeking to be Christ like, not Christ, but Christ like, meaning that, I have to still pray for those people, still pray for their repentance. And while we're taking the time and energy to spew negativity, right, we should be taking the posture of praying for that individual, but then also praying for any people that he negatively impacted and then blessing those people, right? And blessing, I'm talking about the situation, but the posture is still the same. And blessing him and praying for the redemption and praying for God to drop the scales off his eyes and everything like that. And it took me praying because it says, praying for your enemies like heaping hot coals on them, But not only does praying for your enemies do that, praying for your enemies keeps your heart soft. You do not want a hardened heart. God can't do nothing with no hardened heart. So if you want to rise up and be boastful and say such heinous things, like, I would implore you, like, I would implore you, like, there's people who have done ridiculous things, right? Ridiculous things. Nobody deserves to have that happen to them in that way. you know. And even if in life that person was unsavory, that person did, heinous and horrible things, please know that God would still turn those things out for the good. He will still turn those things out for the good. And so let us not be distracted in these comments arguing with people. Because what? We do not wrestle with flesh and blood. We wrestle with principalities in high places. Okay? We need to be tearing down those strongholds. We need to be praying that the scales come off the eyes of people. And we're not praying for people's opinions to be our own. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there is no opinions. There is factual God. It's God's standard, right? Um, I still have opinions on certain things where I'm like, hey, yo, that doesn't make any sense. Like that's crazy. What is this? What is that? Right? And ultimately, it's God's standard, right? It's what He says. It's not how I feel. It's not what I think is right. You have to understand that our best wisdom does not even compare to God. Like, clock it. So I just want to come on here and say, like, please, 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 please do not be distracted by the assignment. We have a very specific assignment to do, and this is time to lock in like never before. We have basically bulldozed through 2025, and 2026 is fastly approaching. That's leaving a very limited time before well, I'll say this. There are going to be more, I was going to say cataclysmic. That's the word that came into mind. So I guess I'll use cataclysmic, catastrophic, or yeah, things won't look entirely like they do now. So it is going to be a new regime. There is going to be a new change, and it's up to us to get in position. It is a lacking, right? From her views about the renewing of the mind. This is not only a love letter to myself, but it's a love letter to all the children, not my children, but all to my children, but also to all the children that live inside of us. And so it's very important that I leave this for posterity's sake. And if you don't have a podcast, like you kind of should, not only for a time capsule of what you were talking about, what you were thinking about, what were some of the things you cared about in a certain moment of time, but I often think about how many great stories, great experiences that like my grandmother had, my mother had, my great grandmother had, my grandfather had, like all these people in my life who had great wisdom. Because don't be fooled, y'all. People talk all day long about generational curses, curse, 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 curse. There is still generational favor. Don't believe me? Um, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I have a promised land for the seeds of that is a blessing. That is a generational blessing. That is something that God very much was like, I have this promised land for you, and it's for you, and I'm going to make sure that it happens for you. This is a covenant that I made. My word does not come back to me void. So you're going to have to lean into that. Yes, there's generational curses. I have them in my family. You have them in your family, you know. we have to pray into those things. We have to break covenants with those things. We have to break bonds with those things. We are not as helpless as we think we are. We are created in the image of God, so we have dominion over the fowls of the air, the fish in the sea, the beasts of the earth. Like, we have dominion over those things. And you have to be able to take dominion over those things. No longer can we sit by and be passive and think that, oh, you know, God gonna work it out. God is not gonna answer a question that He already gave you the answer to. He's not. He gave you the answer. Matter of fact, He put the answer in another person that you're supposed to encounter, but because you think that God is a genie and He's just gonna poof on earth, you're not going to get it because you think it's gonna come somewhere else. It's not. No, that's not how He works. Okay? Faith without works is dead. That's not how it works. Sorry for whomever thought that. And believe me, I too was a believer of that. It's false doctrine. Okay? You have to put in the work. Okay? How did it go? Something that I used to pray all the time. Matter of fact, I might have to start praying it again. I have to get this on a shirt or whatever. But He makes my fingers to war and my hands to fight. Right? So that verse to me, which I wish I could find that. Let me, okay, y'all don't see, but I'm gonna have to get on Googleisha for her to tell me. He make my fingers to war and my hands to fight. Scripture. See where it came from. Okay. It is Psalms 144, first verse. He makes my fingers to war and my hands to fight. Okay. So it's Psalms 1. It's Psalms 144, first verse, right? And that is so powerful to me. And I'll tell you what I think it to mean for me, like the revelation that I got from it. And when I think about my fingers to war, and I've done an audio banger on this book, and I think I'm going to listen to it again because I feel like every time I listen to it, I always get new information. Um, but I think about Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and it's a quick read audiobook. I think it's like an hour, maybe 40 minutes, but it's not that long of a listen and it's not that long of a read. But it's filled with wisdom. And it is a strategy book that you can actually exegete it and kind of fit it in any realm of life. But a lot of people do use that book for business. And I use it. You know what? No, I'm not going to even front on you. I haven't fully used it for business because, to be totally honest, I haven't been as focused on my business as I should. It's kind of been not a super passive thing, but slightly passive thought, right? I'm constantly making my fingers war, which means to plan. So planning and preparation. Wars are not impulsive. They are calculated. They are planned out, months, years in advance, right? And my fingers to war. Okay. My fingers to war and my hands to fight. So the hands fighting as the actual executing is the actual producing of what you planned, right? And so that's what I think about when I hear that verse, and it's very important. Um, I am slightly obsessed with it, and a lot of the things that get deposited in me that I'm kind of like, oh, what's this? Oh, what's that? Which I'm having one of these moments right now where I'm like, what is going on? Like, God is downloading this to me, that to me. And it's a phrase that I say, and I'll be like, oh, for whatever reason. And I'm like, oh, it's not for whatever reason. I know the reason. And the reason is always is because God is trying to tell me something. And a lot of the times we think that everything is happenstance or coincidence, and it is not. Some of these things are very intentional, clear signs from God. Sometimes some things are signs from the enemy to send to, infiltrate as well. But you have to keep your connection tight with the Lord. You have to spend time in your word, reading your word, asking the Lord what it means. But like a great lock in. Like this is the time, and we basically got 2 years. So 2 years to, well, I'm not even gonna say 2 years. Y'all got the rest of Q4 for your fingers to war, and for the next 2 years for your hands to fight. Okay. In preparation of um some Joseph-ish type things, right? But he doesn't tell us these things for us to live in fear, for us to operate in fear. That's not the spirit of God. God is not the author of fear. That's not a fruit of his spirit. So that's just something that I just want to come on to the podcast and talk about and give my little 2 cents in my very vague type of way. But I think it's important that we take the time to be understanding. We take the time to be understanding. People are still going to do whatever they're going to do. Um, but we still have to take the time to assess and quickly act and trust in our training, right? So I started trying to watch what is it called? I don't know. This is the David series on Netflix. And I was like me with my low key theologian self being like, well, actually, that's not how that happened. But obviously, I don't know. I'm just talking from, biblical account. I'm like, it's not how that happened. But I'm like, oh, I'm not really mad at that because, a lot of things, a lot of times they do biblically act like biblical movies or shows, and they add things in that were not things. They do things that were not done. So like Prince of Egypt, I love the Prince of Egypt. Down. Do you hear me? And through some, for whatever reason, but it's not for whatever reason, God did point me into that avenue, revealed to me that the Prince of Egypt is not entirely accurate. Shocker, right? But one of the things is that they name a specific pharaoh, Ramses, as the pharaoh that wouldn't let the Israelites go. And it actually is not Ramses. Oh my God, I can't even remember his name now, but it's not Ramses. I bring it up and then I can't remember who he is. Oh, I'm not even gonna. It. I wouldn't. Let me see. Let me see. If we talk to Google, she'll tell me. Who was the pharaoh that would not let Egypt go? Recently discovered through the Bible um, archaeologists. Okay, it's I can't even say it. Amenhotep, Amenhotep II is the actual one, even though they were saying that it was not. It was Ramses, but it was not Ramses. But things like that he'll bring to my attention and like just to let me know. So be on the lookout for that. I mean, there's going to be in this time, there's going to be a lot of that happening. So like a lot of historical truth because I mean, a lot of people be like, "Oh, the Bible's a fairy tale." Technically, them fairy tales is not fairy tales. It's a lot of truth to those things. That's a story for another day. But the Bible is not a fairy tale. It's more of a historical document because these are actual people. And so we're going to be seeing in the next coming months a lot more things brought to, I wouldn't say national, yeah, like not national because that would be our nation, but to a global forefront of some great discoveries of people and artifacts that will only profess the truth of the gospel. So I'm really excited for that. But like I said, I just want to come on and have a conversation with you all. Um, will I do another episode, child? I don't know, child. But I did feel ever so inclined to do an episode today, and I'm I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. God has me doing a lot of things, has me doing a lot of movement, and I'm just excited for it. I'm excited to share a lot of the things with you all, just a lot of the things that I've been working on. I do have some upcoming projects afoot that I'm very excited about doing, that I know that are going to be very beneficial. Like I said, there are certain things that you go through in life and you feel like, woe is me. Why is this? Why is that? And it's actually, you are supposed to package that thing and deliver it to people, right? From her view, started because I have so many prolific conversations with people on a day to day basis. And I just like was like, dang, like this is so good. This should be a podcast. And it's kind of started as like a hodgepodge of things where I just kind of wanted to catalog some of the books that I was reading and have conversations around that. And I really wanted to be a very spiritually driven, intellectual podcast, which in and of itself, in and of its essence, it is. But I do realize that there are some other topics and avenues and places that did have me confounded in my walk with God, that I'm like, oh my God, if it had me confounded in this way, it's probably got somebody else like all the way off the wall and seeing no hope and just feeling so devastated about it. And so I really was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm really excited. So look out for those, child. It's a new podcast coming up. Obviously, we're keeping from her view because she the OG. But there's a new podcast afoot, and I'm really excited about it. This has been another episode of the From Her View podcast with myself, Sade Camille. As always, it has been a pleasure. I'll catch y'all on the flip side, okay? Bye.